MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
I love Gateway and I love the building, and it's one of 2 brick buildings we have in town.
Coming up, learn what rapid new growth in Gallatin Gateway means for the community and its historic school building.
I'm Joe St. George in Washington. The Department of Agriculture could be on the verge of major changes to school nutritional guidelines, impacting your child's school lunch. We explain why some school nutritionists are worried the government may be overstepping. We explain next.
I'm Joe Lee in Bozeman, where locals are saddened by the loss of a local musician who used to brighten the streets of downtown with his music. I'll tell you just how special this man was and what legacy he leaves behind.
I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, he will be missed.
Yeah.
And don't ever do that again with that.
That was
Whatever
weird.
I don't know what it was like. Stop! He said, "Don't do the first thing she does." Yeah, way to go.
Did
Such
it.
a little sister. Chet Lehman, little sister Jane McDonald, Matt Elwell here. That's just terrible. Stop doing that. It's ridiculous outside.
It's really
Matt
coming
Elwell.
down
It's the
now.
last Thursday in March. We didn't have that much snow the last Thursday in January.
No, we are looking at slick roads this morning as we're starting things out. I'm going to start out with temperatures. They're all below the freezing mark, and they're primed for heavy snow. We're not looking at bitter cold temperatures, but we do have a little wind out there whipping around as well. It doesn't look like much on satellite and radar. We're not getting that low level stuff. Scattered snow showers could be heavy at times through the mid to late morning, early part of the afternoon. A lot of this falling west of the divide. That's probably areas that we'll see the most, as well as out toward Dillon, which of course is not west of the divide, that's east of the divide. I do know the difference. It's just okay. Scattered snow showers out there, off and on snow showers throughout the day. I expect slick driving conditions both for the morning, the evening, and probably again tomorrow morning. Although we're not talking fresh snow in the morning, it's the leftovers. We'll talk. It sounds great, right? Everybody likes some good leftovers.
Some
That's the
leftovers.
bad leftovers. We're going to talk more about your forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Top story this half hour. Gallatin Gateway community has been talking for years about renovating the Gallatin Gateway School. Part of that building more than 100 years old, so you can imagine it does need some work.
Sure. MTN's Elizabeth Fitz reports that residents are now talking about how to prepare for rapid growth while preserving the town's historic school.
I've never had kids here, but I love Gateway and I love the building, and it's one of 2 brick buildings we have in town.
So Leslie Gilmore volunteered to join the Historic Preservation Board of Gallatin Gateway.
That is the 1902 school building that used to be on this site.
Now she's an expert on the town and school's history.
There's like 394 doors coming up across the street. Housing units north of the jump will easily have some kids. So we just don't know how many, what ages.
And until enrollment does grow, school officials will not allot funds for expansion. Instead, they look to make improvements.
So they had one option with tearing the building down, another option with renovating it, and also looking at all the various other improvements that were required with replacement of mechanical systems, more efficient lighting, layout changes, and dealing with some of those breakout spaces for classrooms.
Back in 2020, the Gallatin Gateway School Board voted to demolish and replace part of the school, but the community pushed back so much that the board revisited the idea.
So they did a survey, and majority came out in favor of saving the building. And so then that was incorporated into what went before the community in terms of a bond.
A $7 million bond that included renovations did not pass.
The board, I think, decided at that point that they would stall the project and just try and get a better feel for what they thought the community would absorb, and also what sort of growth we're going to have.
In the meantime, Gilmore wants to put a permanent marker on the school's history.
And we're planning to do that this summer, submit it to what's called the review board in September, and hopefully get the building actually listed in the National Register of Historic Places, which opens the building up for some great possibilities for grant funding through the state Department of Commerce every other year. We could get up to $500,000.
Which would go a long way toward the renovation efforts. Elizabeth Fitz, MTN News.
One of my favorite people on earth used to be the music teacher there for 3
Really?
years. Yeah, my wife. It's a true story. She was the music
Good
director.
answer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Some of the finest Elwells I know have been educated there as well. All right, 6:34 now. Your child's lunch or breakfast at school could soon be changing. That's because of new guidelines proposed by the Department of Agriculture One of the most immediate changes is to push to get schools to serve mostly whole grains by the start of the school year next year.
Yeah, as Joe St. George explains, the push to be healthier is getting some surprising pushback, including from those who oversee nutrition in schools across the country.
Going to the grocery store and finding healthy food is the goal for most people. Although, let's be honest, sometimes buying sugary treats can be a lot cheaper and tastier than buying foods like fruits and vegetables. Healthy eating is, however, a goal for the Department of Agriculture, the federal agency that helps regulate school meals nationwide. And right now, the agency is attempting to change the guidelines on the types of foods served to kids in the cafeteria. In short, the goal is less salt and less sugar on your child's plate. A public comment period is underway. You have until April 10th to submit any feedback to the Department of Agriculture before they finalize these regulations. And while criticism is always some criticism is a bit surprising coming from school nutritionists.
There's a fine line.
Meet Jessica Gold. She's a school nutritionist for Littleton Public Schools in Colorado. We caught up with her during a recent lobbying trip to our nation's capital. Gold says eating healthy is great. She strives for that every day. However, she worries the current proposal might go too far. At the end of the day, school nutritionists must make sure students actually want to eat the food.
The kids that don't like the taste of our food because it doesn't have enough flavor, they bring their own food from home.
Gold's fear is less tastier food could create a culture of the haves and the have-nots, children whose parents can afford to let them bring their own meals and children whose parents can't.
We overregulate sometimes.
Not to mention, Gold says, there is a cost. One suggested change is reducing the sodium levels in meals by around 30% by 2029. That will force food manufacturers to change up recipes and distribution, passing the cost on to schools.
It costs millions of dollars. Sometimes you need a saltier snack.
Over the Department of Agriculture, this issue is serious. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack has called it a public health concern, and new funding is being made available to make it happen.
A measure of national security to safeguard the health and well-being of our nation's children.
Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
More to follow on that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, 6:36 now. From backyard coops to the price of eggs, bird flu has had an impact on many parts of our lives recently.
Yeah, Scripps News national correspondent Lindsay Theus looks into why bird flu is causing so many new concerns.
Bird flu has been killing birds for decades. Strains of the virus have been detected in birds since 1996, with serious outbreaks in 2004 and 2005. But the current outbreak is the worst avian flu in U.S. history. It began in February of 2022 when the U.S. Department of Agriculture detected the strain on a Midwest poultry farm.
A finding of highly pathogenic avian influenza in a commercial turkey flock in Indiana.
Wild migratory waterfowl are known to carry high path avian influenza.
Commercial farms were now vulnerable, the USDA said.
We advise all backyard and poultry producers to practice standard biosecurity and enhanced biosecurity right now with the knowledge that we do have virus circulating.
Since then, the USDA says almost 59 million birds in the U.S. have either died from bird flu or been slaughtered in an effort to stop the spread. One measure to prevent infection has been to keep poultry indoors, a practice used at Cabela Orchard and Gardens in Kuna, Idaho.
We started off the year as normal at our normal time with 600 birds. They had not even left the brooding barn yet. The bird flu came into the area. We didn't dare let them outside.
William McDonough, a falconer near Parrish, Colorado, lost his beloved falcon Vesta to the disease.
It was on Monday when she was flying on that perch. I noticed Wednesday that she was sick.
He called the veterinarian immediately.
The earliest she could see me was at 9:30 Thursday morning, and Vesta died by 10:30 on her exam table.
The disease has killed millions of egg-laying hens on chicken farms across the country, helping send the price for eggs sky high.
We get 5 to 6 cases a week, 30 dozen in a case. It's $180. It got as high as $190.
Usually each case is $60.
Right now it's hurting us.
But the bigger danger is if the disease spreads between people. Scientists have detected the virus in at least 30 species. So far, the World Health Organization has documented 240 people worldwide who have contracted the bird flu. More than half have died. In previous outbreaks, pigs have served as a bridge from animals to humans, mixing bird flu with strains more infectious to people.
The good news with the current H5 strain is it's all over the place, and we haven't seen human-to-human infection. We need to continue our surveillance and be on high alert.
Scientists are working to develop a vaccine for humans.
What we've done in our lab is we've made a single monovalent HA mRNA vaccine completely matched to that strain circulating. Gives great antibody responses in mice. We're now working with a group in St. Jude to test that vaccine in ferrets.
But Scott Hensley with the Penn Institute for Immunology and other experts say the world would be severely challenged if bird flu started spreading between humans like COVID. One issue is mass production of a vaccine. It could depend on chickens to lay eggs, and those chickens would be at risk of bird flu.
But our world is not ready for another pandemic.
An alarming prospect in a world that has lost almost 7 million people to a different viral disease, COVID-19. Lindsay Thies, Scripps News.
All right, back here at home now, 6:39. A man who filled Bozeman streets with blues for years recently passed away, leaves cherished memories behind.
Yeah, MTN's Jolie Solis spoke with some locals who say downtown will never be the same without him.
A musician known for brightening the streets of downtown, who used to sit right here picking his guitar, has sadly passed away.
Every single time I'd walk down this stretch, there would always be Elijah playing the guitar and singing, and it always brought a smile to my face.
This is Olivia Davis's second year living in Bozeman. She says she feels lucky to have gotten to hear 69-year-old Elijah Mann play the blues on one of his many guitars.
I never really interacted with him a whole lot, but just knowing that he was there really just brought a lot of life to the town that I really appreciated.
Davis is just one of many who has been touched by Elijah's music.
I used to, or I still do, walk down to the co-op all the time for lunch, and I'd always see Elijah on the corner in front of Sinead's, and we'd always wave, and sometimes he'd stop playing and we'd chat for a while.
Tyler James works at the Music Villa off Main Street. He met Elijah in 2003 and says he was always kind to his fellow musicians.
Elijah was a very special human being. He loved everybody. He loved music, was very gracious, and he was definitely one of those guys who would go out of his way to make the local musicians feel good about what they were doing.
On March 21st, James received the news that Elijah had passed away. His battle with cancer now over.
I just couldn't believe I'll never see him again when I'm walking to lunch. It's tough. Yeah.
These social media posts say it best. The streets of downtown Bozeman won't be the same without him.
He loved the attention. He loved making a little extra money. Some people thought he was homeless. He was definitely not homeless. I think people are really going to miss seeing him.
But he'll surely never be forgotten.
Music really just brings people together, and so without just hearing that music, it's definitely going to feel a little lonely around here anytime I walk down this stretch of town.
In Bozeman, Jolie Solis, MTN News.
Rest in peace, old friend.
Absolutely. Wow.
He will be missed.
Yeah, he touched so many lives
Oh,
downtown.
absolutely. Absolutely.